So I'm David Storke. I'm a funeral director. I've been here in Caroline County for 34 years. I own Storke Funeral Home in Bowling Green, and we have other locations, but I've been with Kevin ever since he came here and started his ministry, and now he's leaving and I'm still here. And it's not going to be the same without him. I came to Caroline County when I was 21 years old to come work here at the funeral home, and that was 1987. And so I had about 2 years having funerals and working with Steve Jones at Salem, and he was just a great guy. Folks loved him, and I know they were heartbroken when Steve left. And then a couple years later, I think '89, Kevin was called to Salem, and so I would have been 23. And I always joke with Kevin because I was 23 and he was probably 25 or 26, but I jokingly tell people I looked 12 and he looked 13, and I see this red-headed kid who dressed nice in a suit. I mean, looked like a pastor, but he wasn't a Steve Jones. I mean, Steve Jones had probably French cuffs and tie tied perfectly, and hair was just right, and that's what they were used to. And then along comes Kevin, and I thought, oh boy, this is a big difference. But and so he had to struggle. He had to earn his way. He had to prove to people that who he was and what he was going to do with the church. And so I got to know Kevin and worked with him on funerals, and he was like nobody I'd ever worked with before, in that I'd never had a pastor come to the funeral home to be with the family when we made the funeral arrangements. I just was not used to it. And Kevin was right there on every funeral. I would go to an accident scene or to a house when someone has passed, and Kevin was there. Then I'd see him the next day at the funeral home, and just Kevin has made a whole ministry. The way I've known him is through the funeral business, and I never attended Salem. He's never my pastor, but I consider him a friend. But Kevin has made a whole ministry in his career, 30-some years at Salem, using funerals to show the love of Christ. And I can name several families and people that are active members of Salem today because of Kevin did the funeral for their fill in the blank, son, daughter, spouse. And at first with Kevin, he was so in the trenches with these families that I was with planning funerals, and he was there for every step, and did a fantastic job on the funeral. And I used to often think, there's no way this man can keep this up. I mean, you can't, if you grow a church, and this Salem was booming, it's like no way he can keep doing what he's doing with all of these families and just personalized attention. But I'm here to tell you, he did it up until 2 days ago, Doris Church's funeral. I mean, Kevin has been the same consistent person from the first funeral to the very last funeral that I'll do with it. And Kevin is a friend. Kevin taught me how to play golf, which I don't think he's proud of probably, but because we used to play a lot back when times were slower, but for both of us. But Kevin taught me to play golf, and Kevin is one of those friends where everybody probably feels the same way. I'm not special, but he makes you feel like you're special. But Kevin is one of the top 5 guys I would call if I was in a jam. Obviously this day was going to come, and Kevin deserves retirement or the next chapter in his life. It's almost impossible to think about a time without Kevin, working with him closely. But he certainly deserves, as high intensity as he's operated his entire career, he deserves to slow down and enjoy his grandchildren and enjoy his family. And I know it'll never be the same. After doing hundreds of funerals with Kevin, it'll never be the same. We will miss him. I know we'll see him again, obviously, but the current relationship won't be quite the same. But wish him the best. And we'll take him back if he ever wants to come out of retirement.